Hey there, hunting family. Welcome to another riveting episode of Tracks and Tackle. Today we're delving into the unique adventure, a journey of hides and highlights. This time we're not chasing the wild, we're tanning a deer hide. It was the first time for the Mentzer Outdoors team, and we're excited to share the ups, the downs, and everything in between. In our Hides and Highlights episode, we're going to go behind the scenes in our inaugural deer hide tanning experience. Join us as we unravel decision-making process and the challenges we faced and the unexpected joys discovered along the way. It's a journey of discovery, camaraderie, and the artistry that connects us to the very essence of the outdoor lifestyle. So whether you're a seasoned outdoorsman or a curious newcomer, tune in to this episode and hope that all goes well with the hunt. We're stepping into the world of hides and unveiling the highlights of our first-time tanning adventure. This is going to be a good one. Thanks for tuning in. All right, hey hunting family, we are back and glad you're tuning in for another episode. We have a little bit of time here. The Arrow Eagle and the Hollywood Horse checking in with you. How you doing today, Hollywood?
I'm doing. It's always a good time when we're able to dedicate some time, hop on here and share some stories and just catch up with each other and share some laughs.
Yeah, no kidding. I want to say we were at the beginning of the year, really, we sat down and we were talking about the different topics that we want to cover this year and the different projects we want to get into, which I know that we'll get into a grocery list of ideas that we have probably toward the end of the episode. But today, it's all about our latest project that we just completed. Took an attempt at our hand at deer hide tanning. If I can get the words out.
Right. Yeah, because it's the off season. We're rubbing our heads together saying, hey, we had a blast. We had a good season. Had so much fun. What's next? So we did some thinking, and I think you sparked the interest, and with each other, it's good if you think of something and throw it out there and you're unsure. I'm like, yeah, let's do that. And it's just good to have a buddy that's willing to turn the same page and start a new chapter. So yeah, we got this deer hide and we started this project, and we'll get into telling you all about how it went.
Yeah, I would say, like, for me, I was, you get that depression, or not really depression, it's depression. After
what it is.
Yeah, you get off season and you start thinking about, well, it's too early to go shed hunting, and we were cooking down some skulls. This is the deer head that you and I were working at. This is the buck that I took this year, and
Hey.
got him set up. Yeah, I mean they were really good and close to one another as far as what they look like. So we want to show those off, and we're just thinking through what projects can we do. And I started watching like YouTube videos about tanning hides, trapping actually, and I'm thinking about coyotes. And I know we recently did an episode on coyotes, and it just sparked my interest. So I said to you, hey, if any of your buddies come across a hide and we can get our hands on it, like, definitely next year I want to try my hand at tanning it, try to get a nice deer pelt, or small game. If we can get some foxes or coyotes or coons, I want to practice on whatever I can. But that's sort of what sparked the conversation. And like you said, having a good hunting buddy, we just egg each other on.
Yeah, so started this project. It was relatively made easy. I have a buddy that does some crop damage management, and we talked about it, and shortly after we were able to get our hands a hold of a hide. So I guess that's why we got into it, just going off each other, egging each other on, and self-fulfilling prophecy. If you talk positively enough about something, it falls right in your lap. So we had a golden opportunity. We were able to get this hide, and we were able to start our project.
Yeah, and it's part of culture, right? It's like the deer hunting culture. outdoorsman, woodsman culture, whatever you want to call it, even like the natives of this land, like they would use every part of the animal. And this is something that I had not really done in the past, obviously, but it's something that I want to learn, because I always want to expand my tool belt, the tools in my toolbox. I want to have extra skills. I might know more than one guy, but I don't know as much as the next guy. And we're always, the outdoors is a classroom, and we want to learn from that. And so yeah, it's really, for me, it's like picking up another tool in a tool belt.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think something that perked my interest too is, we're getting more and more outdoorsy, more and more self-sufficient. It seems each year we go, I become more and more passionate about it. But yeah, like what you tied into, like when you harvest an animal, you want to use everything that you can with God giving you that opportunity and God giving you that creature. You want to, honor it. So I just looking back, how many hides have we gotten rid of just because one, we weren't interested, we didn't know what to do. So now this project now it let us know that we can try our hands at it, and we we do a good to okay job. So it's funny. This one turned out a lot better than one that I tried in childhood. I remember with my dad. I guess I wanted to do it. I don't know what made me want to try it, but we. Long story short, in doing our research, I don't think we scraped the meat off of the skin enough, and we just put a lot of salt on, and then I think we nailed it to a piece of plywood just so we could stretch it a little bit, and then essentially forgot about it. I wouldn't say we forgot about it, but it just takes time, and there's certain windows when you need to do certain steps, and we just didn't get to it. So this thing was super stiff, and we just didn't have the drive to go any further with it. So ultimately, it just went for scrap.
Yeah, I think I've tried it one time on my own as well, but I really didn't put any much research into it other than, I know you need to dehydrate it. So, you get some salt or some borax, and there's 100 different ways to tan animals' furs and skins. And, so this time we did our research, and we tried to document it to some degree. People will see our short clips that we post of working on the hide, and certainly it's not a how-to video. We are just learning as we go, and we're capturing the memories because that's what we like to do here. So
joining the adventure is essentially why I like to throw it out there. Like, join us. Like, hey, if this turns out like crap, like we'll laugh about it and we'll learn from each other.
Yeah. I mean, we totally love the comments we get from everybody. I had the deer that we worked on wasn't a really big deer. It's not a gargantuan hide, which is a good one to start with. But I mean, we've got comments anything from, is that a rabbit, or, oh no, that's a dog. Like, there were no dogs injured in the filming of this podcast. So, people don't know what they don't know, but same thing goes for us. We're learning. And so it was an enjoyable journey. And so the first step was we had to figure out, okay, what do we need to make this happen? So I don't know, Hollywood, if you want to set the stage for us and just give us the basic outline, the basic requirements, what we need to get started with the tanning process.
Yeah, we can jump in here. So first thing that you need the deer hide. So we were able to secure that. And when you get the deer hide, especially if you're doing it yourself, like if it's one thing you're getting from someone else and they already skinned it, like here's the hide. But if you're going to be making a fur out of this and you're going to be saving that, delicately cape this hide. Don't rush through. Trying to less holes that you poke through it, the prettier it's going to be when it's hanging on your wall, or whether you turn it into some leather, whatever you might make this hide out of. But yeah, step one, getting the hide, making it clean. Then essentially the play-by-play is you scrape as much of the meat off as you can. The less meat, the better. Makes it more pliable, lets it stretch a lot better, makes it smoother. So you take off as much as the meat as you can off the hide. Then ultimately you're going to put a little bit of salt on it. You're going to roll it up, let it rest for a night, clear off that salt, repeat again, just so everything dries out. And then at a certain point, you want to wash the hide just to get all those oils off. And then here's where I guess you can divert your project, all depending on what you're doing. If you want
Sure.
this hide to be a wall hanger and just for looks, you want to keep if you want to keep the hair, you can ultimately put on a tan oil, which will help the leather stretch out a little bit. And you can, a day or two later, when it's just a little tacky, you can start to essentially beat the crap out of it just to get everything loosened up with that leather. Or before you go to the tanning oil step, you soak it in some borax, some like acidic solution, and that'll take the hair off. And then you continue with the oil step. But that's the gist of it. What I learned through this experience is really wasn't that hard. Sure, it was a little time consuming, but the time that we spent on it really wasn't too crazy. And I think what made it better was that I had you to help me with it, and you had me vice versa to accountability. So, I think all in all, in total, we might have spent 4 or 5 hours on it. The step that took the longest, you probably agree, was making sure we get a nice clean hide and scraping that meat off.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, there's a ton of different ways that people go about tanning their skins and making furs. But I think like if there's one lesson learned or there's one takeaway you can take from this episode listening to us is like, you can do this. Yeah. Anybody can do this. It wasn't as difficult as what maybe we had it figured out in our minds before we started. And now on the backside of it, it's like, that wasn't too hard. There's some hurry up and wait involved, like they say in the government. You get the deer washed and you got to hang it out and you got to let it dry, or you got to, you get it fleshed off and then you got to let it sit with the salt on. So there's like, you do a step, you walk away, and you come back and, the certain set amount of time and you address it again. And when you have a partner that you're working with doing it together, like you said, we only spent a couple of hours in total actually hands-on working on the project, but we were doing it together, and you got an excuse to hang out, and that's what makes it fun, right? So yeah, I would say, like,
go ahead. In here to say that there's just a few days where just hey, take the salt off, put more salt on. It took us all but 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but it came right after work. We did that and just hung out for the hour or so, just, catching up, shooting the breeze.
Yeah, everybody needs an excuse to hang out with their pal. So I would say, if you want to get serious about, doing fur and stuff, Hollywood touched on it. One of the very most important and time-consuming parts is, fleshing the skin, right? So you need to have a good tool to do the job. And, full disclosure, having not done this a ton of times before, we were making do with what we had. So, a lot of people will recommend, get a fleshing tool. I know that you can get your knife on there. You want something that's dull, it's not sharp, it's not going to cut through the hide. But you got to take your time, and you want to get that skin off as close to the membrane and everything off as close to the skin as you possibly can. And especially when you get out towards the edges of the hide, however big or small that hide is, like that's probably the most important step, because the rest of the journey is going to be easy or difficult depending on how well you did in that step. So having the right tool to do the job, and you can get a fleshing knife on Amazon for like $20, $25. So, make the investment if you want to get serious about doing this. Get a good tool. We grew up on a farmette where we raised hogs. We butcher our own animals. We have a lot of the tools. And, we actually were using one of the trowels that we used whenever we used to scald the hogs for butchering, and you have to scrape the skin to get their hair off. Which growing up, man, that was a real pain of a job. Like, never enjoyed doing that. But that tool worked really, really good for getting, all the fleshing done on our deer hide. So having the right tools, that salt, you want to get some good dish detergent liquid to break down the oils when you wash this with the hide, depending on the animal. some animals are more fatty than other. So I know like not all dish detergents are created equal. You want something that's really going to break down the grease. And yeah, so having the right tools to do the job is going to make it that much easier for you. So Hollywood, you touched on sort of the different steps, but just walk me through the process of how we hammered this thing out. Like we got the deer, and then we had to skin it, right? So it started with skinning the deer, and it's not like when we're in archery season in the woods and we just want to get it hung up and get it skinned so we can butcher the deer. We were sort of approaching this a little bit differently this time, right?
Yeah, we really took our time, but I could piggyback you off a little bit, using the right tools and just how this was a learning experience for all of us. So yeah, we got the hide off, but we first started, I brought two of my deer knives over. So one is the one I use all the time, and the other one was one never used before, still had the plastic tip on it. That sucker was sharp. So
I wish my knife was always that sharp as that knife was.
Right. So when we were using that sharp one, it worked great at cutting off the flesh. We had to be, really careful. We didn't put any holes in it. But I just remember anytime I touched that knife, your blood pressure shot up about 30 points because you were worried I was going to mess this hide up. So
I was definitely vocal about keeping that sharp, because I used that blade when we were skinning the deer out. And man, it was like a hot knife through butter. I mean, that thing was sharp, and I was a little bit nervous every time you broke it out of the sheath when we were fleshing.
Right, and yeah, with the fleshing, I guess I want to make it a point that I didn't realize this. Maybe others won't realize it if they're making the journey to try tanning a hide. But yeah, there's like the meat layer, and there's like 2 or 3 other fine layers under there. So we had to really take our time, be diligent with getting that layer off, just so that the voyage later would be a lot easier. So we did that. We used the knife. We used that the hog skinning tool, as you said, which worked great. And then ultimately too, we even tried the pressure washer. If you want to tell the folks about the experience of the pressure washer and our self research. Yeah,
so like in the journey, there's always these humorous moments, right? And so we're seeing like all these different, I'm studying, right? I'm watching different folks on YouTube show us how-to videos, how to handle your deer hide. And I saw 1 or 2 people where they said, yeah, just break out the pressure washer. You don't need to flesh it with a knife. You don't need to have that tool. But you know how you can make a video, you can doctor a video up, make it, and I'm sure that it worked really well. But this deer that we had, pressure washer really wasn't getting it. We ended up having to do it by hand, is what we opted to eventually do. But yeah, I mean, I wanted to get the pressure washer out and try hand at it, because if it was going to make it easier, like I'm all for getting the right tools to make the job the easiest, And I know that we had your lab with us. And that pup was just sort of hanging out while we were doing it. And we had my Australian Shepherd hanging out as well. And the dogs were like watching and wondering, like, what are these guys doing in the yard? But, here it's January when we're doing this project, and we're out in the yard with a pressure washer, hammering this deer skin, trying to get the fleshing off. And wasn't super successful. But I think that if I had patience, I could probably make that tool work. So drop us a comment if you've done that method and you think that that's better than certainly using a fleshing tool, because we're open to try anything. We did try it. We just opted to go back to the hand tools. But yeah, we got some pretty cool videos, because the dogs being around as well. Like the dogs like the water, especially your lab.
Yeah, they like the meat scraps too.
That's really why they're hanging out, right?
Right. So, but yeah, I think it just goes to show that in our tool belt, there's plenty of tools that we can use. Some are better than others. Some are worse than others. So just through trial and error, we're just figuring out what specifically works best for us. So
yeah. Speaking of your lab, yeah, can you see
Euro mount?
Yeah, we've been training her to track deer, and he's got some antlers on his desk, so she's a good girl.
She's learning. But yeah, so that was, like I said, the most time consuming step. And I think just in general, just to stay on the tools idea, the next, steps, we did the salt, put it in the bucket. That was mostly our hands. But once we got to, actually we were done putting the oil on. I know I'm fast forwarding here and skipping through some of the basics, which they say, fundamentals are important and at the roots. But when we got to the point of, really working that deer hide and stretching it, we tried everything. We used, manpower. We rubbed it over that joist that was holding your second story up. We rubbed it over a 2x6 that we found lying around. We were using a contractor speed angle. We were using some concrete tools. I don't think, looking back, I think the board worked best using manpower, but trial and error. You don't know till you try, and just trying to work that hide in as much as we could.
Yeah, and most of the people say if you got like an old fence post, works really, really well because it's stationary, it's in the ground, and it's not going to move, and you can just really work the hide over it and stretch it out and keep it. Because what happens with this, if you think like you go to the pet store and you get yourself a raw hide, right? It's the same thing, only it hasn't been stretched, right? It's been allowed to dry out and harden, and you don't want your animal fur to become a rawhide. So you gotta, before it completely dries out, you want to work that fabric and you want to get the oil into it, and you want to preserve it that way. And so we found a good. I think probably the best method, I agree, was we had a nice 2x8. And that we could prop up against the table and work it kind of like a fence post, and just run that hide back and forth over it just to break it in. I think back to like I don't know, when do you get your first baseball mitt? I was probably 7 or 8 years old when my dad got me my first baseball glove that was mine. I wasn't like using an older brother's or something like that. And I remember the process, man. That thing was so stiff and hard, but I had to apply oil to it. I had to get a baseball in it. I took a baseball, put it in the mitt, and took binder's twine and tied it up so that the mitt would form to the ball, the size of the ball. And you just had to get some use on that thing too to get it broke in. And now, I don't know when the last time I got my ball mitt out, but it's just a similar example that like if you saw my baseball mitt today from when I started, it's floppy. It's real easy and broken, but it took a lot of use, a lot of wear and tear to get it to that point.
Yeah, so I know you worked over the hide a second time since I've been over to first start breaking it in. But it was interesting because we have an old coyote hide that's hanging up here. I want to say it's from my grandpa Clyde. Is probably, I don't know, this thing's probably 2 decades old. But the back of it's so soft and so worn in, like, you could rub yourself here and it'd be so soft. But I don't know. I think it would be curious to see, what our work is compared to this coyote hide that's been professionally tanned and professionally worked over, just to see where we are compared to the pros.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's definitely, when you go out to the pros and you have them sent away to be professionally done, they can get a really, really good product done on that. So, I'd be curious to see, you like to compare our work to that as well. That'd be interesting to look at. So right. I would say I was just going to say, like, I think the key to drying these out really is when you're applying that layer of salt. Like once you get it fleshed out and you lay it flat and you get the salt on that thing, you don't go shy. I don't think there's such a thing as too much salt, right? And that's going to keep the process. If you use too little salt, it's going to take you twice as long. So that's all I was going to say. Like key is your first step, you get the thing fleshed out really, really well. And then your second step, you want to get that salt all over that guy. And that's probably a breakdown and repeat. And you put a second layer of salt. But I put so much salt on this thing that you couldn't see the flesh. It was covered top, maybe a 1/4 inch salt over the entire hide. But once it's done, you start breaking it in, like we were saying, and the finished product, it's not too bad actually.
Yeah, I think it
show
looks
this
great.
thing off.
Yeah, especially from when I was over us first breaking in, it was cool to see the transition because it wasn't stiff, but it was like a sheet of paper. You could move around a wobble like coloring paper, like cardboard paper. Like it was a little stiff, but it had a little bit of pliability to it. But after we worked it in, you could really tell what we did made an impact. But yeah, like a day or two later, you sent me that video. You were using some power tools on it, and just the way you were moving it around, I'm really excited to see it. But yeah, I think this turned out much better than any of us expected. Not putting any of us down, but I think we did a great job.
Yep, and ultimately, you think you're excited to see it. I'll be excited to see it on that wall,
Right.
in the backdrop of your area there where your desk is. So,
Right.
yeah, we once I got it, we got the tan applied to it, and it was broken down a little bit. I took a hand sander to it and just did like a final buffing, on the product. And here, if I wanted to, I'm going to break this out.
Hey.
This is the final product, if you can see, and it's pretty flimsy. It's pretty, soft. It's going to look really good on your wall. So that's the money shot right there. We'll get this thing over to you, get it in your man cave, and I'm excited to see it hanging on the wall for you before we get to our next project, right?
Right. Yeah, we were talking about possibly recording in person. You come to the office, and it's a lazy Sunday. You got a few things going on, but then I was like, I do want to pick up that deer hide. So someday here soon, I'll have to swing by and grab it and tack it up on the wall here somewhere where it's approved by my landlord.
Yeah, well, you got to keep them happy as well, without a doubt. So overall, would you say you're satisfied with the project? And
yeah,
think back to when we first started.
Yeah.
I was going to say, start where we first started, and we're thinking, should we or shouldn't we, versus where we are right now? Because the whole point is, I think anybody that's watching, you can do it, right?
Yeah. Do you remember what I told you after we skinned this thing? We skinned it, and I think we were just wrapping up before you were heading back home. But if you don't remember, or you need a little reminder, what I said to you was, I just want to put it out there. At this moment right now, I have zero regrets. Like, we're not wasting our time. I can see this going somewhere nice. Versus, if we this thing looked pretty hideous after we skinned it, I'm just going to be like, why did we bother, taking 2 hours out of our day to mess with this thing and pick it up and take care of it. So I think from start to finish, there in between, there's a little bit of like hesitation. Like, is this going to, turn out the way we think it's going to be, or
you just don't know.
Yeah. After a while. Yeah. Especially after we first started working it over, and what you showed me there, it looks great. So dittos and tip my hat to every party that was involved in making this hide come to reality.
It's going to look good, man. It's going to look at a nice piece of decor there in the man cave. So I'm happy with it. I can't wait until we do the next one because, having done one, you're always trying to improve your craft. So the next one's going to be even more fun. Are there any lessons? Like, I know we just did an episode about lessons learned from hunting season, and all through hunting season we'll come in and we'll be like, lesson learned, should have done that. Any lessons learned from this, So
I want to twist the question back around to you before we jump into lessons learned. I want to hear from the Arrow Eagle. What would you do different next time?
For me, like, not knowing exactly what to do, and then from all of our research, and there's so many different ways about going about it and stuff. I think that we were pretty methodical about the way that we went through this step by step. We communicated with one another as we did each step. There were certain days where I had to break it down and you couldn't make it over. There are other days where I had to wait for you to show up to start working on it because we wanted to do it together as a project. I'd say like if there's anything it's the timing, right? When the hide's ready to be salted, you got to salt it. When you got to pull it out, you got to wash it. You got to wash it. We left it sit a little bit so that our schedules would work out, which is okay. It worked out fine for us. But if like there was one thing I could adjust, I'd say the animal skin's going to dictate the schedule to you more than us trying to work it into our schedule, doing it as a tag team. And then, if we had to do it all over again, which I'm looking forward to doing all over again, I do want to invest in a good fleshing tool to flesh this thing out. I think we did a good job on it with the tools that we had, but, famous last words, your dad and I, we worked construction together for many years, for your grandfather. And he had two boys that would do the work. We were the horsepower, whether it was pushing a wheelbarrow or carrying shingles, up onto a roof, off the ground, or whatever the project was. And we would always say, like, they make a tool for this. It's famous last words. They make a tool for that. And your pap he didn't need a tool because he had us boys, but you can do the same job and make it a lot more easier when you have the right tools. And that's what we started off with talking about. So getting a good fleshing knife, letting the hide dictate the schedule to us. Those are probably the two biggest things. And, honestly, the part that sucked the most was washing this thing in cold water. I wasn't willing to take it up and put it into the kitchen sink. My wife allows me to do a lot of things, when it comes to this program and our outdoor adventures. But I wasn't going to take this up and put it in the kitchen sink like I saw some of the guys on YouTube doing. So we got ourselves a basin and we filled it up with water, and we hand washed this thing. But it was like 11 degrees outside, snow on the ground, 4 or 5 inches of snow on the ground. We were doing that. That was not pleasant, but you do what you got to do to get the job done.
Yeah, I think, trying to think where I was going here. I think for future, it would be interesting to see, there's guys that say you can, you don't feel like dealing with this project in the winter, you can roll it up, freeze it, and then just get it out, let it thaw out and work on it. So I'd be curious for the future if we decide to take that route and, in the early spring when it's a little bit warmer, we don't have to worry about the cold fronts coming through as much, testing out that, seeing how it goes. And how you say there's a tool for everything. They make a tool for this. How many times butcher and hogs do we bring this up? And, each year we grumble about the same things, stirring the scrapple and stirring and so forth. But we can get to that topic a different day. But yeah, I guess to revert back to your question about lessons learned, I think the biggest thing we joked about a lot last year was young bull versus the old bull. The young bull's in a rush, while the old bull takes his time and he gets the job done. So I think a big thing that I learned, and it can be applied to life, the outdoors, work, your relationships, whatever you do, like it's just best to take your time, do it right the first time, not rush through. And then by the very end, you can look back and see a better overall finished product versus if you just rammed right through it and, I'm tired, I want to go home. So take your time, take a step back, enjoy each step of the journey and working through it together as a team. But yeah, it was a great project. I had a lot of fun. So I think also going forward, something that popped up in my head as we were doing it, it is a little time consuming, not in the sense of, time on task, but of waiting. I think it took us a week, maybe 10 days for everything. And the biggest steps was just letting it dry. But I think for the future, it would be best if we did, we'll have to find the ideal amount because we don't want to overwhelm ourselves. Maybe we'll have to recruit some more staff members to join the project. But I think doing like 3 or 4 hides at a time, you have to find the space. But that way with the steps, you can, if you're a day ahead on one, you can space it out. And by the end, you have more products. Because I think, there's plenty of people around that their hides, they just go in the scrap and they get dumped and they get wasted because they don't want to mess with it. They don't know how to mess with it, or, they just never even think of it.
Yeah, I think that you're right. Like next year, I anticipate us having, plenty of hides to work on. We didn't think about this project until after season was over, and we'd already disposed of, everything that we had gone through. And if we have a season next year like we did this year, we'll be able to supply our own hides. But we know a lot of guys in the hunting community that do the same thing. They just get rid of their hides once they get the deer out. And if we can get them to cape them out real good for us, yeah, we're going to get some practice next year on this. I have no doubt.
Yeah, I can think too to attest that when you got your nice buck there sitting on your desk, we're on the back side of the mountain that we always talk about, but we're just worried about getting it back down to the meat pole. We're dragging this thing up, down through some rocks, and we're about halfway down, and this thing's rubbed naked, like half of its thighs.
They had it
like,
fleshed. They had the outside of this deer fleshed off on the one side before it made it to the meat pole. So we would have had to make buckskin out of that.
Right. Yeah, and I think in the future too, it'll be nice to try our hand at the buckskin. Trying it, and then we can maybe like venture into leather making. Nothing too crazy. I know you want to get some pants made, but maybe we start something simple like a wallet or maybe like a patch, using like a burner on it to make a patch, and go far from there. I initially brought up the thing it'd be cool to make some bino holders, but
yeah, that would be an awesome project.
Set realistic goals, so start small and then work our way big. So step one for next year is going to be just making the leather to begin with, to make sure that we can do a quality job at that.
Yeah, we'll get a couple more of these under our belt, and then we'll continue to take it up to the next notch, to the next level. Being an uncommon man, want to be not normal. We're not like everybody else. We're a step above. So
we don't care what you think. We do what we do, and we try to be the best at anything we touch.
That's it, and we're enjoying it. One of the things you were talking about is just like slowing down. And look, I like sitting back and seeing this finished product as much as the next guy, but really the memories are in going through the process, and the memories we have of the dogs hanging out with the dogs wanting to come up and get their nose in there because they smell the fresh meat, or we're playing with the pressure washer, or we're trying to wash this thing in 11-degree weather, 4 inches of snow in a basin outside. Like those are the memories. And so yeah, if we just slow down and we enjoy those moments, that's what the hunting journey is all about for me.
Yeah, and it's not to brag, to say, hey, we did this, look at this, or hey, look at these deer that we got. It's more so just sharing our love of it, that we have, more so the camaraderie with each other and our family, our friends, but just sharing our stories and hoping to hear other people's stories along the way.
Yeah, that's what we do. We're here to share stories. That's why we're recording, and that's why we're capturing these memories. So, hey, let's wrap this thing up. I know that we got a couple of guests that are, lined up to come on here in the next couple of episodes. We got a guest that's lined up. We're gonna do some recording a little bit later on today. So they're gonna get ready. They're probably gonna be knocking on our door to get into the studio here soon. But from your perspective, a couple of different projects, real quick, that we got coming up. What's on the roster for the next month or so?
Yeah, so we have first off, you said about the guests. We have a few guests aligned. I know Ace is going to be coming on the show here. As for projects, we recently butchered some hogs, so we thought it'd be nice to kind of share back the experience and look over the past decade with our family traditions, how much that's changed and grown. We did some thinking, and we want to try our hands at some homemade bologna, maybe ultimately some sticks. But like I said, setting small goals, so we're gonna, rather than making the 24-inch sticks that you normally get, we're gonna try maybe a smaller log. That way the meat doesn't go to waste. But trying our hand at that, being more independent and less reliant on others, I think is why we do these projects, just to grow with each other as well. We got the Outdoorsman show that's coming up here February. We're gonna be going on the Friday there, and checking it out. It's my first time going there. So the world's largest outdoorsman show. So it'll be good to go in, just check it out, learn something. They'll do live demonstrations. There'll be plenty of vendors. So who knows what's going to happen there, but just checking it out and looking into doing some more there. But yeah, and then I think another project we talked about is just reflecting on our recording process, seeing what we can do better, maybe diving into why we got into doing this more, just so our viewers and listeners have a better understanding. But yeah, a few things coming up. It's always all about finding time to be able to sit down and talk about it. But it's always a blast each and every time we do this. That's why we do it. It's just fun hanging out with each other and sharing these memories and, getting inside each other's head a little bit.
Well, I'm having a blast on this journey with you, man. It is fun every time we do it. And, we can go back and listen to like the first episode that we recorded. And, I think about the first, like the trailer, little video that I was sitting down in my swimming pool in the summertime, thinking like, man, we really could be sharing and capturing all these memories. Just thinking about like the beginnings, where we are. And even now, we're constantly making changes and improving on our craft and our tactic. Yeah. Whether it's tanning an animal skin, whether it's bow hunting, whether it's bass fishing, like there's always a way to hone your craft and improve. And we want to do that here with production quality and, sharing stories and those type of things as well. So yeah, we've got a lot in store for the listeners that are out there. We appreciate you guys tuning in. You can find us at Tracks and Tackle, and you can also find us at Mentzer Outdoors on social media apps. Appreciate you guys watching, and I'd say like the lasting words that we would leave with you here is that when it comes to tanning animal fur, you can do it. It's not too difficult, and this is just, it's not a daunting task. Anybody can do this if you just put your hand to it, take your time, and enjoy the process.